There's the man's right here, like right where I'm shooting.
When you're Cliff, you're crazy.
No, you.
To be expected bugs, okay? They'll fix it. That's not that big of a deal.
It isn't launch yet, just a beta. Beta phases for upcoming games always merit a lot of discussion. And more than anything, it feels like history is repeating itself over and over again. On the one side, we get the side of people that spells doom and gloom at every opportunity imaginable. Players who will go out of their way to find as many bugs as humanly possible just to be able to claim that said game is a complete disaster. On the other side, we have the it's just a beta crew that, more than anything, seems to retaliate in the face of alarmist accusations and misinformation. Needless to say that I don't believe either of these approaches to be entirely healthy. Yes, I do want to talk about The Division 2 specifically in today's video, but this discussion can be applied to many other similar situations. A recent example would be Anthem, and perhaps even Fallout 76 to a certain degree. It is my belief that Massive Entertainment has learned from a lot of mistakes that BioWare made when it came to their demo phases. And because of that, I would like to lead with Anthem as a negative example as to what I believe is the wrong way to go. This is not criticism of the game itself. In fact, I already know that I am going to be playing it at launch, which is less of an endorsement and more of a statement for the sake of context. From what I can tell, Anthem is a really fun game that, if you are willing, has a lot of information out there for anyone who wants to dig it up. Anthem's developers have been answering questions very openly on social media and spend a lot of time getting more and more information out ahead of launch. But let's talk about the concept of releasing a game preview. Whether you call said preview a demo or beta actually makes a big difference because of the implication that comes with both of these terms. Beta is a word often used to give yourself a safety net. If things don't go so well, and if other things are still broken, you can always excuse it by claiming that it's going to be better in the final build. Demo, on the other hand, implies the release of a portion of the finished, functioning product. A slice of content that was cut out from the complete game for players to try out and see if they want to invest into it. The reason that Anthem's VIP demo was a complete disaster in my eyes was not because the game was bad. It's because, for the longest time, we have been criticizing developers and publishers for hiding behind the beta safety net that they keep using to excuse problems, when our experience tells us that, more often than not, these problems will persist even at launch. Where the decision to call your preview a demo implies a lot of confidence in that they don't need to hide behind the word beta, the response to all the criticism was quite contrary to any of that. Excuses and promises of improvement for the final game have been made left, right and center. What BioWare and EA have effectively given us was a beta version of the game more than a demo. So not only did they fail to deliver on the promise of giving us a slice of a complete product, but they also found themselves hiding behind excuses that they previously decided to stay away from by going with a demo label. Now I know that a lot of you Division fans are probably getting very impatient because so far in this Division 2 labeled video, I have mostly been talking about Anthem. But what I want to show you is that whatever you decide to call your preview, at the end of the day, this is the way you decide to show off your product to the public. It does not matter that the Anthem build we played for the demo was a couple months old, because ultimately they decided to advertise their game using an old build that was not representative of the final product. Every excuse you make at that point has no value to your average consumer because it was your decision to show your product in a way that put it into a bad light. And all the criticism you get based on that cannot be deflected one way or another. This is the image your product now has because of the decisions you have made. In the case of Apex Legends, Respawn Entertainment decided that the best way to advertise the product was to let it speak for itself. They didn't need to make promises and excuses because everyone has a chance to take a look at it for themselves. They released a finished product that ended up being its own marketing campaign. If your marketing campaign consists of showing off a broken version of your game, then you simply screwed up. Now, to finally loop back around to The Division 2, the developers over at Massive have even acknowledged themselves that development cycles do not allow for drastic changes in the short time between the beta and the full release. It's fair criticism that has been leveraged against the practice of releasing beta versions so shortly before the actual release of the game, and to my knowledge, they are the first to openly admit to that problem. The technical state of The Division 2 is indeed worrying, because even things that are not being rendered by your PC are still being calculated in the background. Opposing factions are still going to fight each other even when you are not there. Control points will be contested even when you don't see them. New events will show up, up, and they will happen whether or not you decide to go and check them out. Point being, if we don't understand how the game functions on a fundamental level, it is difficult to predict whether or not these beta problems will persist throughout the launch. Because, believe it or not, some of these problems can be fixed before launch, and hell, even before the end of the beta. For example, there was an issue that had the Uplay launcher be in conflict with the game itself on the language that should be played in The Division 2. The result for many bilingual players that end up playing the game in a language that was not native to their own was that all the dialogue audio would simply not play. It's so awkward because I can hear her pouring in some whiskey, but like, you can't hear her
the dialogue.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I'm sure Isaac has really interesting things to say right now that I cannot hear. And as big of a problem as this might seem, it was fixed a single day into the beta. If you don't understand the root of the problem, then some of these issues may seem more problematic than they really are. Some of these things include hitbox and collision issues, AI behavior, and server stability. In a lot of cases, a tiny mistake can cause problems that look really bad to the consumer. And if you keep piling up small mistakes, it'll eventually add up to an overall bad impression. That's not to excuse the problems that the beta showed. It's just to illustrate that not everything necessarily has to spell doom and gloom. My friend and I, for example, ran into bugs and glitches very rarely. The worst thing I can remember is an NPC T-posing that my friend could not see. In fact, the more egregious problem was actually server stability. Because the game booted us out so often, we had to rerun a mission 4 times over until we finally got credit for completing it.
Can't be in DC without getting DC.
Don't ever say that again.
Why do you think they call it Washington, D.C.?
Oh my god, I hate both of you. Random events in the open world will be gone because by the time we recovered from being kicked off the server, these things would have essentially played themselves already, thanks to the logic of the world not giving a damn about whether or not we are present. Personally, I find it silly and almost misleading to try and make a big deal about small problems that some of these people went out of their way to find, especially when the product is called a beta and the devs are asking for feedback. But these players never bothered to report any of these bugs and instead just use them to further their own agenda of making others believe that the game is unplayable. But simultaneously, if you believe that it's just a beta is a valid excuse to deflect criticism, then you really need to step out of your bubble. Some players will rightfully be turned off from wanting to buy this game because of the decision that Ubimassive have made in advertising the product by using a build that was full of problems. Things are never as black and white as many want you to believe, and don't forget, having an extreme type of viewpoint simply sells better than saying, it's alright, I guess. The Division 2 demo, in my opinion, was far from a disaster. It showed off enough to make me feel confident that this game will deliver exactly what I was looking for. More Division with a lot of improvements that simply wouldn't have been possible without rebuilding the game from the ground up. I know it's not that easy to differentiate between game-breaking problems and small issues that can be fixed very quickly if you are not doing extensive research or if you have no idea about game development, especially in the context of each development studio, their staff size, and their development processes. And I'm not here to try and change your mind. In fact, I am far from an expert myself. I'm basing these things off of my experience alpha and beta testing a number of games in the past. There are a lot of problems I've seen persist, and a lot of problems I've seen taken care of. But if you lack this type of context, then your opinion might be different. And for anyone who is jumping on anyone's throat for disagreeing with them, remember that this context is important. Not everyone made the same experience and knows the same things as you, and we all base our opinion off of all these factors. So, long story short, no, it's just a demo is not a valid excuse. But things can be explained away without trying to excuse them. And when even the developers are acknowledging that not everything can be fixed in the short time between the beta and the launch, then maybe, just maybe, you should stop using it to deflect all the criticism about a game that you like. A lot of these discussions would be way more fruitful if all of us were simply admitting to our own bias. But this is already it for today, as I talk about the technical state of the Division 2 in particular, and the it's just a beta excuse in general. Let me know down in the comment section below if all the bugs and glitches you have seen were enough to deter you from wanting to buy this game, and whether or not you were already set on wanting to buy it before the beta started. While you're down there, don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you guys next time.